So, yeah. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our run of show. And we might have some reporters that get here a little bit late. One of them is gonna be here in 10 minutes. They may have additional questions for speakers that they miss. But we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much. If you can just squeeze in a little bit, that would be great.
There's like 2 layers of people.
Yeah.
David, morning.
All right. Ready when you are.
There's lots of layers of people.
All right.
What's those guys?
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. My name is Diana Gonzalez and I'm the Executive Director of New Yorkers for a Better Penn Plan. I'm joined here today in front of the now demolished Hotel Pennsylvania with members of our newly formed coalition to end Hochul's hoax. The boarded up buildings and empty lots around us are the remnant of Governor Hochul's vision of a campus of luxury office skyscrapers, one that would make its developer, Vornado, extremely wealthy. But these office buildings aren't getting built, not in this economy. In spite of the seemingly obvious reality, Governor Hochul refuses to give up on her plan. We're here today to call for a new plan, one that prioritizes the development of housing, which is something we sorely need. Under the current plan, it is forbidden to develop housing on all but the smallest site, with affordable housing making up only 2% of the total project area. Governor Hochul has called on communities throughout New York State to build housing near transit, and today we are here to ask her to do the same. If this entire project were housing instead of offices, we could develop 10,000 new homes. As a frame of reference, in 2024, New York City is slated to develop 11,000 units of housing across the entire city. This project could double that number. The time for new housing is now. The time for going back to the drawing board and reworking the general project plan is now. So we call on the governor to reopen the plan and incorporate real input from community stakeholders and advocacy groups now. Next, we'll hear from some of our coalition members and we'll take questions at the end. And so I'd like to kick it off by introducing John Mudd of the Midtown South Community Council.
Yay, John! Well done.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody being here. My name is John Mudd. I'm with the Midtown South Community Council. I've been living here since 1984. I've been part of the Community Council since about 86. And we work on health, housing, hunger, and I'm happy to be here with the coalition against the development. And we've been fighting this fight for about 3 years. I'm happy to be with a lot of advocates that fight for housing, health, and food security. I'm happy to be with the NYCHA group. We are fighting developers from taking over NYCHA and ending public housing. So we're in a crisis. We're dealing with so many crises. And more than a housing crisis, we have a humanity crisis. And humanity is in short supply, particularly with Governor Hochul and the mayor. And the governing policy serves no public interest. The public is the last to be considered. That's not controversial. The corporations create the schemes. The Empire State Development Corporation turns the scams into policy. And the governor and their political allies rams the wealth extracting policy plans down our throats and calls it democracy. 30 years they've been dreaming about redeveloping this area. For 30 years, river-to-river commercial development. The Midtown hotels, if you look back to the Bloomberg's 2008 development policy that allowed hotels to oversaturate this area, particularly in Midtown, to snuff out tenement buildings, destroy neighborhoods, and create such dependency on tourism. Again, not smart policy. It's good for developers, but not for the public. We had the answers. If you look back in history to look back in where they were developing the hotels, and we had the answers back then. We we were talking about transforming these hotels into housing.
Right.
But did they take that idea and run with it? No. And this was done. This was done back in our history. We did a lot of housing. We were able to supply housing and have people living rather than living on the streets. Now, if you go west to the Hudson, you've got a crystal ball there about their plans. Development is being orchestrated to the public city's detriment. I mean, they're building through a vacancy crisis. The New York Times reported, as office use declines, so does the value of buildings, resulting in New York City collecting smaller taxes. Office buildings are vital to the New York City economy. Commercial building, including offices, account for $31 billion, or 40% of the total property revenue. Now, but we're going to fight on. We're going to fight them. We see the damage from their self-enrichment and private partnerships with their development schemes. The outcomes: we've got 653,000 homeless people nationwide. That's up 100,000. There's 400,000 living on the New York City streets. That's a fraction, what I'll argue, of the 150 plus people living in the New York shelters. Homelessness cannot be separated or disassociated from the housing crisis. Being sheltered and employed is too common. Shelters have gone from being a last refuge of destitute to being the only viable option for many low-income working families. Now, the unrelenting plan to strip away the public housing stock by selling NYCHA land to private developers is happening right now. It's been happening. We've got developers related wanting to downsize the public housing footprints and eventually end public housing. It's a private club among the developers. The New York City Marshals have evicted tenants at a rate that increased by more than 259% so far compared to last year at this time. Now, Matthew Diamond, who wrote Poverty by American, the social studies and author, we're poor for being underpaid and paying too much rent. We're paid to suffer inflationary health and lending costs. Our labor and needs create opportunities for the wealth of others. The housing and homeless and health and hunger crisis have been screaming for real attention long before and through the pandemic. We need real infrastructure. Dan Doctoroff, Mayor Bloomberg's Deputy Mayor of Economic Development and Recovery and current co-chair of the new New York panel assembled by Governor Kathy Hochul and Mayor Eric Adams, describes the build-out of low and middle-income housing as the linchpin to a positive economic outlook for the city. Now, we want to kill the general project plan as a revitalizing effort. Who really wrote the plan? Enriching this city requires nurturing growth, not wealth. Call me crazy. Consistent and stable communities, less transient, looks a whole lot better than the pain you see in the eyes of those who are suffering our governing economic policies. And that's all.
Thank you,
John Moore.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Next, I'd like to hear from Mike Peake from Strong for All Coalition.
Thanks a lot. There's nothing that New York needs less than tons and tons of new luxury office buildings. And there's nothing that New York needs more than tons and tons of affordable housing.
That's right.
Governor Kathy Hochul has the opportunity right now to stop doing stupid things and start doing smart things. And that's why we're here today.
Right.
Governor Hochul and Governor Cuomo before her took all the control of this entire area and handed it over to one billionaire, Stephen Roth. He gave about $500,000 in campaign contributions to Cuomo and Hochul. And his minions, his executives, gave hundreds of thousands of dollars more.
That's right.
New Yorkers hate corrupt politicians.
Yes, we do.
New Yorkers hate seeing our elected officials paid off by the wealthy and well-connected. But New Yorkers love doing something about the housing crisis.
Why we're here?
Kathy Hochul has the opportunity right now to pivot away from being an unpopular politician tied to an unprofitable office tower deal with an unsustainable financing scam led by a billionaire who may not be a billionaire when this is all over. Tenants, neighbors, workers, people who are homeless or unstably housed, everyone wants Hochul to get rid of the general project plan for the Penn Station area, to work with the legislature to keep that control. We need to build just as much affordable housing all over this area as the empty office buildings that Stephen Roth wants to build. So if Governor Hochul knows what's right for New York, if Governor Hochul knows what's good politics and good policy, she'll junk the GPP and she'll work with the people at this press conference and in this community to build more affordable housing than New York has seen in generations. That's the opportunity, and we encourage Governor Hochul to take it. Thanks.
Next, I'd like to introduce George Calderaro of the 29th Street Association, Neighborhood Association.
Thank you. New York State and New York City should not be demolishing viable historic buildings to create massive vacant lots that blight our communities for years. Until very recently, this vast block-wide vacant lot before us was the once magnificent McKim-Mead and White Hotel Pennsylvania, the world's largest hotel when it was built in 1919. Those 2,000 rooms could have easily been renovated or used for affordable housing for asylum seekers or anyone else seeking affordable housing, especially as the city is right now this week resurrecting single-room occupancy housing notions and plans. Vornado was able to conduct this monumental act of vandalism with impunity. And some of you may recognize this expression, monumental act of vandalism, was what Ada Louise Huxtable in the New York Times wrote about the demolition of the original Penn Station in 1963. They should be made to create a much-needed park on this site while they wait for many years or decades until CEO Steve Roth decides that it's once again time for ground-up development for his inevitably vacant luxury office towers. Have you learned nothing since the mind-bogglingly short-sighted demolition of the original McKim-Mead and White design Penn Station? New York must learn from its mistake and stop unnecessarily destroying historic, viable buildings housing hundreds of businesses and residents when better options abound. Our community, my community, your community, already resembles post-war London, with vast vacant lots left vacant for years or decades, where significant buildings were leveled for the sake of so-called development. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Leila Lagasico, the Land Use Chair of Community Board 5.
Leila.
Go, Layla.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you everyone, and thank you to the great housing advocates who are here today, because, you know, we've been fighting this GPP, we've been fighting this plan for now 3 years, and everybody's asking, you know, what is the plan about? Is it about the train station? It should be, right? But it's not. It's about super tall towers. Is it about housing? Well, no, it's not. It's about super tall towers. It should be about transportation, and today, it should be about housing. Behind us is a vacant site.
Sadly.
3 months ago, there was a full building standing here. This building was raised to tragedy and active vandalism on our district.
Good word.
So my name is Leila Logizico. I'm the chair of the Land Use, Housing and Zoning Committee of Manhattan Community Board 5. CB5, as you know, has been involved in the evaluation of the GPP for the Penn area. And today, I and we, the community that I represent, are really encouraged to join our housing advocate partners to call for affordable housing to be a priority rather than an afterthought, or even worse, an alibi for a bad plan. The vacant site behind us of the former Hotel Pennsylvania presents a prime opportunity to address the critical shortage of housing in our city.
That's right.
So what we're doing today is that we're strongly advocating for the redevelopment of this vacant site into permanent, affordable, and sustainable housing units.
Real.
The current housing crisis demands immediate action, and utilizing this space for residential purposes aligns with our commitment to fostering a more livable and inclusive city.
That's right.
This development initiative must prioritize affordable housing options that cater to various income levels and demographics within our community. This district is not only for the uber wealthy.
That's right.
We need middle class, we need low income housing in this district. This is a priority. The creation of such housing not only addresses the housing scarcity, but also enhances the vibrancy and diversity of our neighborhood. So we urge all stakeholders and decision makers to consider this proposal seriously. Utilizing the former Hotel Pennsylvania site for housing aligns with our vision. Unfortunately, and you may not know that, but the GPP does not permit this kind of development in our district.
Wow.
Under the new zoning, a fully housing project could not be built. Let me repeat this.
Wow.
A fully housing project cannot be built. It is prohibited by the GPP. This is not acceptable. This does not align with the priorities of Community Board 5. We are on record for the past decade advocating for housing and making housing our top priority.
That's right.
This is defeating our goal. This is defeating the goal of the entire legislative body that represents this district. We are all on record stating that housing is the priority. This GPP must be retired, and this site must be redeveloped into permanent, sustainable, and deeply affordable housing. This is a prime opportunity, and it needs to happen now. We cannot wait for another decade or more for something to happen. This is the blight.
That is the blight.
This
They
neighborhood
created the
is
blight.
perfect. Look at this building. Perfect. This now is the blight.
That's right.
It is self-inflicted, self-created.
That's right.
And if it is for ulterior motives, we don't like those motives. We need housing, and it needs to happen now. And I'm really encouraged by the presence of housing advocates here today
That's
to
right.
make this call and join Community Board 5 in this ask. Thank you so much.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce James Innes of New York Communities for Change.
How you doing? As she said, my name is James Innes. I'm a campaigner and advocate at New York Communities for Change. And I'm actually proud to be standing here today with different community members, specifically community members, but housing advocates, electeds of the sort. Because this area is an area that is home to some of the most profitable businesses and corporations in the world. And I want to see it home to some of the blue-collar workers who work at those corporations and make those actual corporations tick, right? This neighborhood, as you can see and as you've heard, is home to a diverse group of people. A diverse group of people who are working together to do what's best for this community, not what's best for Renato Real Estate Trust and people who donate to Governor Hochul's campaigns. These people have been facing a lot of opposition from the governor, and these people have been fighting and pushing back against the governor, not just this governor, but the previous governor, since this was announced. And we need to give these people in these community boards the credit they deserve, because Midtown Manhattan isn't known for pushing back against big real estate, right? But as you see now, Midtown Manhattan wants community. Midtown Manhattan wants affordable housing. Because Midtown Manhattan understands affordable housing is public safety. Affordable housing is community.
Say that.
And New York City is a city of community.
That's right.
We want this structure to house thousands of affordable housing units. And those thousands of affordable housing units, we wanted to house local students. We wanted to house newly arrived brothers and sisters from the Global South. We wanted to also house the hardworking blue-collar people who are gonna bring their charm, their culture, and their community to this area, because those are the things that actually make New York City, New York City. So I'm thankful that I can stand here with everybody, and I just want to say, Governor Hochul, build community in Midtown, not office space. I'm from the Bronx to Brooklyn. We are all fighting for affordable housing, and as you can see here, Midtown Manhattan wants the same fight. We are all in it together. Governor Hochul, the people have spoken. Fight with us. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, we will now take questions from any of the speakers. Any questions? Yes.
What's the difference between affordable and subsidized Section 9? Because Section 9 is the protection for housing.
Right, I think.
And we're protected, but Section 8 is private service.
Right.
That only lasts from 1 to 20 years, that we'll have it, and then they'll kick us out of the city.
That's right.
Right. I think you've answered your own question.
All right, we're good. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you later.
How are you?